I'm back in the workshop for a little while this afternoon and working on the plastic drum that is going to go inside the barrel, and more specifically on the penetrations in the bottom. What I discovered on further investigation is that the bung threads are different on each side, whereas the one on this side is a fairly fine thread, and then the bung has the 3/4 BSP hole in the middle of it, so that's all straightforward, that's taken care of. On this side it was a much coarser thread, and I suspect that's because that's where the pump goes and it's easier to deal with. So after a bit more thinking, which you can do when projects go on for a while and there's no particular urgency, is I've decided to use 65mm stormwater pipe. So this would normally be a downpipe coming off a guttering, and so this is a M&F, as in the 60mm pipe goes in this side and the other side will go into a 65mm pipe. Now what I'm planning to do is bore this hole out so that this smaller size will go through it, and then I will put that on the inside, and then on the outside I will sleeve that with a little bit of pipe, and then I'll put a 90° on it. So that will be sleeved enough to go out through the bottom of the barrel, and then this will fit, I don't know, something like that. We'll figure that out as we go. So that's the plan. So there wasn't very much to come out to make it fit. I'll show you actually. So I put that in there. You can see it's almost big enough, but not quite. I did initially think that I would grind it out with a grinding wheel, something like this, and just go round and round until I got it right. But I discovered that I actually have a hole saw that is the right size, because that will go through, but it's actually just, it'll fit inside there. So it's basically, it is exactly the same size as the pipe. Now that will work really well, because it means when I push this up through the hole, it will be able to seal around there, and then the pipe can go on the outside, and that will also seal the hole. So I will glue it and silicone it and all those good things. The tricky bit is that obviously without something in the center of that hole, the hole saw tends to want to wander. So we will see how we go on that one. Let's have a crack. that's probably what you call partially successful, because what it's done is it's actually more melted than cut its way through. but of course it's taken part of this with it. That's not the end of the world. I can just cut right around there with a knife. I think that will work okay. I'll clean this up with a chisel actually to get it nice and flat, a nice sharp chisel. But there's a reasonable thickness there that will enable me to get a good seal around there once that's sorted. I mentioned in a previous video that I intended to chamfer the inside of the barrel to allow the bird bath to drop in a bit further, which it did. Also, when you cut an oak barrel, due to the hardness of the timber, it does leave a bit of a ragged edge that can be hard on the hands. To do this, I used what's called a flapper disc in my grinder. These are really effective for this sort of job, and also good at removing old paint or rust from flat metal surfaces. As you can see, that's a nice snug fit in there now. So that now that I know where that's going to sit, I can measure for the drum and cut the drum. From where I have cut the barrel to the inside bottom of the barrel is 770 millimeters. I'm going to allow 70 millimeters for the upturned bird bath bit to go down inside. So that means that my plastic drum and a piece of timber at the bottom of it can only be 700 millimeters high in total. So we'll measure that off and then I guess we'll cut the drum. as you can see, you have a little bit more than 70 mils there, but that is because the bottom of the drum is sitting a little lower than what it will actually sit once I get everything organised. But that looks like it's going to work, and definitely the other piece will fit on the top fine, so that's all good. The top of the bird bath is going to be the most visible and tactile bit of this project, so I spent a bit of time making sure that the edge of it was both smooth and so that it looks nice. You can see where I have marked where the hole in the bottom of the barrel needs to go for the penetration out of the plastic drum, and I've got it straddling two boards so that I don't have one board that potentially I would cut off altogether, because see, this one here is not very wide, so you wouldn't want to have the hole right over that, because then you'd end up with two pieces that weren't joined. But by having it here, I've taken a reasonable chunk out of that board. I may even move it slightly that way so there's more out of this much wider central one. and the other hole is a lot smaller, so it's less of an issue. But if I just rotated that ever so slightly clockwise, then it would straddle this one better, because the join is right there, and it would also mean that more of it was coming out of this big one, and I'd have more meat left on this one. The larger hole for the overflow pipe didn't need to be as snug a fit through the bottom of the barrel, but that's the largest hole saw that I have. It is fortunate that the size that I have works well for what I'm trying to do. The smaller hole is larger than I need to put the pipe through, but it gives me some tolerance between the pipes and will make it much easier to fit the threaded pipe in the bottom. I do still need to drill the hole of the larger size through the bird bath to allow the water coming into the bird bath from the downpipes to pass through into the drum below. I'm still not completely settled in my mind as to what the top of that pipe will look like. If possible, I would like to have some kind of a screen at the top to stop leaves going down into the drum. I may have to make a mesh cup that fits inside the pipe so that I can just pull it out and clean it from time to time. The birds quite like having the water to splash about in, and so to accommodate both the tuies who like to really get in there and throw it about, and also the smaller birds, I'll probably put a couple of concrete pavers into the bird bath. I'm also thinking about a fountain of some sort that would feed from the drum back up to the bird bath. That doesn't need to happen as part of the build, as I can add it later if that's what I decide to do. Yahoo! The other thing that I do also need to add is to put some sort of water level gauge on the outside of the barrel so that I can see at a glance how much water is in there. I'll run that up the side of the barrel from the pipe that feeds to the tap. That actually proved to be a little easier than what I thought it might be, so that's always a bonus. And you can see there's the join between the two timbers there, so most of it is in this wider one, a little bit out of there, and this one here, the wider one is there, the narrow one's there, so again more in the bigger one than the smaller one. Proportionally probably about the same. But that's what we wanted, and I was very pleased when that downpipe went straight in and straight through. That it's always a little bit, am I going to get these lined up right when you're doing that kind of thing? You only get one shot at it. So that's good progress. All this wood dust and whatever is making me a little thirsty. I'm going to go and have a drink. See you back next time.